Just want to say I appreciate the opportunity. I've had a few months now to serve on the chamber board, which I found very informative, and I've kind of enjoyed having that direct connection to the business community. We'll talk about a few items this morning, and then I'll open it up to any questions that are out there, especially if there's anything I didn't cover that someone has a question about. But I think one important thing to mention first is, since this pandemic has started, there are a lot of different agencies and businesses in the county, organizations that are playing a role at different levels. And I've received questions from time to time is how do we communicate? How do we coordinate? Everybody knows we have a public health director, Samantha Ainge, and our emergency management coordinator for Surry County is John Shelton. But, you see a lot in the newspaper, press releases on the county website from them. But we also have something called the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and we refer to it as the LEPC. And I know some of you that are on the call today, you actually participate in the LEPC. And in any typical year, it meets quarterly. But when something like this happens, it meets on a much more frequent basis. As a matter of fact, since March, the LEPC has met between 1 and 2 times each week by conference call. To kind of give you an idea who's on that call, of course, public health and emergency management, EMS, local and state law enforcement, local industries, the chambers, the economic development partnership, nursing homes, as well as city managers, myself, and many other agencies get on that call. And during that call, John Shelton and Samantha Ainge and members of their staff, they disseminate the most current information to all of these agencies at one time. It also offers each person on the call, or each agency on the call, an opportunity to ask questions of our folks or anyone else that's on the call. And so there's actually a very concerted effort on a weekly basis to get everybody together on the phone and to communicate and to be as open as we can. And everybody's hearing the same information, which I think is very helpful. In the past, those meetings are usually face-to-face, so it's been somewhat of a challenge to meet over the phone, but I think it has worked very well, and a lot of credit to our health and emergency management folks, our law enforcement folks, for making that happen. If there are any other businesses, I think, in the community that have an interest in what goes on in those calls, I would reach out to the chamber, to Todd Tucker, and they can disseminate that information out to you. But it's a very diverse group that we have on there. Like I said, some of our larger industries, which are involved in this pandemic response locally, are on those calls as well. I know just about everyone on the call has had tremendous challenges over the last few months. Our challenges here have primarily been some things that many businesses and industry do quite well now. First of those was figuring out how our essential employees who couldn't be in the office during the pandemic because of maybe they are high risk themselves, they have childcare issues, being able to allow them to telework has been a challenge for us because, unfortunately, for the most part, most of our folks still work off desktop computers here. So I have to give a lot of credit to our Board of Elections. They actually have about 90 laptops that they use when there's an election going on. And as soon as this started, as soon as the early voting period was over, they loaned those to the county, and we were able to reformat those and get those to our essential employees who need to work from home, which has been a tremendous resource for us. The challenge now is we have to return those within a couple of months so they can start preparing for the general election in the fall. And so we're going to be working with some of our state COVID money and FEMA money to try to get to a point where a lot of these folks have the ability to go mobile if possible. One of our other biggest challenges was that we were one of the few counties in the area that still did not broadcast our meetings out over the internet. I believe all of our surrounding counties have been doing that for some time. We had to sort of adjust to that. Our first meeting, I guess with the meeting in March, we actually, meeting in April, we actually have started televising on YouTube. So Surry County Board of Commissioners now has a YouTube channel. And going forward, even when the pandemic ends, these meetings will always be televised and available to the public to watch. We had a second special meeting last week you may have read about, where the county commissioners adopted a proclamation to send to the governor to request that the local economy be allowed to open up in a safe and responsible manner. We also attempted to broadcast that meeting on YouTube. Unfortunately, we had 2 links on our website to the meeting. One was a good link, and some people were able to watch the meeting live, and some others were not able to watch the meeting live because the other link was not good. So we've corrected that. Excuse me, the meeting is available online for anyone who wants to watch after it's no longer live, but we're still kind of figuring to work out the bugs there, but we had some human error on our side, and we've corrected that now. But the other thing that we were sort of a challenge that we worked through really quickly were 2 things that we do here, which are real important for the local business and construction industry, and that is to make sure that our landfill and recycling operations maintain their regular schedules, as well as making sure our building inspectors can continue to operate. They've, for the most part, gone completely mobile. Fortunately, in that department, we already have the technology in place, along with our permitting system, to accept everything online and to allow those guys to work from home. And I believe that we've had, for the most part, uninterrupted service providing there. 2 things that have occurred, which we are not real happy about, but we had no options. One was that the county was going to celebrate, actually this last Saturday, our 250th anniversary. We had a large event planned here in Dobson. We have had to postpone that. It will be rescheduled at some point in the future, and we look to have a successful event with it once it can be rescheduled. And the other thing was a program that a lot of youth in the community depend on every summer. Some of their parents depend on for childcare, and then there's our summer recreation program. I think for the first time ever, we had to basically cancel it due to concerns about safety for the children. I know a lot of parents who will be going back to work soon, hopefully, maybe who've been furloughed or been teleworking, depend on that program in a normal year for childcare in the summer. So unfortunately, we've had to cancel that, but it's been a staple of our Parks and Recreation Department for a very long time. Our other focus that I'll talk a little bit about, aside from COVID-19, has been just like our 4 municipal partners here in the county, the budget process. This hit for us a time where we typically meet with our board much more frequently. We meet with our department heads much more frequently, and we work to develop a budget for fiscal year 21, which would start July 1. It's been somewhat of a challenge this year. We've worked on a modified schedule. To date, my staff and I haven't had a opportunity to have any dedicated budget work sessions with the Board of Commissioners. Typically by now we've had 3. We are going to have one next week. It'll be sort of a day-long marathon, and we're going to try to cover everything that we possibly can. But we are working through, like I said, a modified calendar this year. And it's been somewhat of a challenge, but we have stayed on schedule internally, which I think has been a good thing. And I'm very appreciative to my key staff here for helping to keep that going. And some of us are coming in the office, some are working at home still. As many of you in the business community know, the revenue picture for everyone is very concerning. And there's a couple of situations I know for some of the business sector out there, they've been allowed to remain open, conduct sales, but for most folks, that's not the case. And of course, the business community success and sales is also the county and our 4 municipalities' success on the sales tax side. And sales tax shortfalls, which are going to affect us in the current year that we're in right now, really March through June, and then how long that will last in the next fiscal year, it's tough to estimate. We've gotten some good guidance from both the Association of County Commissioners and the League of Municipalities at the state level, as well as the State Treasurer's Office, Dale Folwell's office. And we've been using that information to kind of decide where we think we're going to fall next year. I can tell you right now, I know I talked to the town manager in Elkin this week. We were both thinking that we're probably going to see a 12 to 15% decline in sales tax revenue each year. Typically, we budget 3 to 4% growth. So that's going to be significant for us. And when you talk about sales tax, it's just not the county, the municipalities, and the state that gets hurt. Our 3 public school systems will be hurt by this because that's where the money comes from for their capital projects. part of that sales tax revenue is restricted for public schools and community college capital projects. So all of us will feel some pain there, but it is what it is. We're going to adjust, and we're going to do what we can to keep services running. Like I said, we're staying on schedule. We're going to present a recommended budget 1st of June. County commissioners will hold a public hearing in June. I can tell you now that our budget will undoubtedly be quite a bit lower than the current year. That's what we're aiming for. We're not really taking an approach to kind of maybe just hold the line and hope things get better later next fiscal year. We're going to go ahead and take significant efforts to make cuts now, and basically along those lines, with the exception of cutting any services or reducing any services, which we're not planning to do at this time, all other options are on the table and are being considered by my staff at this time. Even though we will adopt a budget in June with some unknowns out there, we will closely monitor the situation through the first and second quarter of next fiscal year. Actually, as soon as the budget's adopted in June, staff and I will start working on another round of projected cuts, that if the county commissioners need to implement those at a later time, say in October, we will have those identified for that. So that's sort of our plan to, if we didn't go deep enough, our plan to go deeper will be in place before we have to make that decision. And one thing about the current year when I mentioned the sales tax revenue decline, we're very fortunate. The Board of County Commissioners, since the last a decade ago, they've taken a very conservative budgeting mindset. And because of that, our fund balance, our savings have grown significantly in the last 10 years. Some of that growth is going to help us in the current year. It's going to help us absorb any revenue loss that we incur. One issue with the sales tax revenue concerns are that we won't see, for instance, we won't see May sales tax numbers till July. We won't see June until August. So they're always 2 months in arrears. And so with that being said, in the current year, for some of these months that we won't see till next fiscal year, we are going to depend on that fund balance, that fund balance number to kind of get us through. But like I said, for next year, we're going to go ahead and make some deep cuts and plan for the worst. Yesterday, I was on a conference call that might interest some of you. As you know, this past weekend, the governor, as well as the General Assembly, passed a COVID-19 Recovery Act. It covers a lot of different things. If you're interested in reading it, it's about 70 pages long, and you can find it online. The area that's of interest to me and the 4 municipalities, some of our other public entities in the county, is that there was $150 million allocated, and that's been in the media over the last few days for local governments. Found out yesterday that Surry County is going to be awarded somewhere between $1.4 and $1.5 million. Some of us were hoping that some of those funds could be used for lost revenue that we're incurring. But unfortunately, this money, well, not unfortunately, but this money is a pass-through from the CARES Act that was adopted by the federal government a few weeks back.